Hey there, welcome back to the Chrysler 62TE demo assembly series. Today we're going to be assembling the valve body. We have it all cleaned up, all the valves cleaned up and everything like that, and we're going to test it on the Sonex vac tester. So if this is the first of these videos you're watching, just a quick background and kind of overview to set expectations. This is not a customer job. I pulled this transmission out of a 2008 Pacifica in the junkyard with the intention of tearing it down, inspecting it, and learning what I can about these transmissions to make a decision as to whether or not I want to start rebuilding them. So it was done also in advance of a customer job that was supposed to come in, but unfortunately that job fell through. So I figured, well, I have nothing better to do. I got to put this transmission back together anyway, so I might as well film the whole process. So that's kind of what we're doing. Anyway, we have all the valve trains cleaned up, all the castings, the spacer plates, etc. The only thing I haven't touched yet is that solenoid pack. So, you know, like I said, we'll deal with that in a separate video. But what we're going to do today is put the valve body back together and then take the whole thing over to the Sonex machine, test all the hydraulic circuits to see if there's any problems, any impairment, anything we would need to otherwise correct in case this was, or I guess I should say in the event this was an actual rebuild. So I'll go over all that stuff then when we test and, you know, kind of talk through common problems, symptoms, and we'll also flash diagrams across the screen so that you can see exactly what it is we're working on, all the different, you know, terms for the valves and how they go. So let's go ahead and get started and get this thing put back together so we can test it. Alright, just a real quick run through the valve trains. You have the manual valve, the low reverse switch valve, the direct clutch switch valve, solenoid switch valve, and low underdrive switch valve. And those valve trains are going to go on the far side of the valve body. And then on the PR side, we have the TCC switch valve, the TCC control valves, number 1 and number 2, along with the sleeve, the TCC regulator valve, and then the main pressure regulator valve. Alright, Sonex will tell you to assemble your valve bodies dry and test them that way, but I found, at least in doing this so many years, that it's actually not necessary to have all the valves dry. I mean, you can assemble with WD-40 or even transmission fluid. I mean, if you assemble with transmission fluid, yeah, it gets a little messy, but let's face it, it's going to have transmission fluid when it's in the vehicle and, you know, running and operating. So your readings are going to be probably the most consistent and accurate when actually using transmission fluid. The reason you don't want to use dirty transmission fluid, in other words, testing the valve body straight away after you take it off the case, is because there's probably a lot of grit and clutch material and other debris in those circuits, you know, in all these channels, so that, you know, and that debris is going to act like sealant, if you will, and potentially throw your readings off and make you think that each of these circuits are healthy when in fact they're not. So once you clean up the casting, wash all that crap out of there, and all the valves are nice and clean, then you're going to get a much more accurate rendition and picture of the health of this valve body from a sealing integrity perspective. Alright, let's go ahead and put everything back in. So we'll start with the pressure regulator valve. Just go ahead and seat it. For anodized aluminum valves, they may require a little bit of persuasion to get into their final resting places, but you shouldn't have to force it in with like a punch and a hammer or anything like that. If you feel it dragging, just take it out and polish the board with a bench buddy. That's the easiest, most straightforward thing to do. Alright, so these gate latches are basically going to go just like this, and then the hook's going to engage the little notch on this side, top side of the valve body. Alright, let me see, this screwdriver may be just barely big enough to do what I needed to do for that spring to collapse it. TCC regulator. I think this one's a little tough coming out, if I'm not mistaken. When I filmed that was a couple of days ago, so don't remember exactly. Okay, dumbbell. Doesn't matter which way it goes in. And then your other valve. Let's get that dumbbell all the way in there. Like I said, minimal persuasion with something like a screwdriver and, you know, tapping on it is fine. But if you have to hammer on it, then that would, to me, indicate a problem. Okay, this orifice here, or hole's gonna, you know, be outboard. And then this has to go all the way in. And then you're gonna have your notch right here. So it's gonna come in like this. Alright, last but not least, at least on this side, is going to be your TCC switch valve. And then you got your bore plug. Alright. You just want to check them. Make sure they're moving free, not binding up on you. Main thing is when you work the valve like this and you release the screwdriver, you want to make sure that valve snaps right back into position. Just like that. And when you do this, wear safety glasses if you're, you know, holding the casting, you know, straight at you, because some WD-40 might, you know, flash back, you know, spray you in the face or in the eyes or something. Okay, these valves seem to be fine. Alright, we'll do the manual valve last. So the two valves that take the metal retainers, the retainer is going to go right there. Alright, solenoid switch valve, and it's 3 plugs. 1, 2, and 3. See if one will go in. I think I think these face out. You know, the side where you have not necessarily this impression, but this impression, although as I'm looking at them, they appear to be 100% symmetrical, so it's probably orientation agnostic. So you'll notice here, your plastic retainer clips have a cutout that will align with the corresponding, you know, cutout, so to speak, in the case. So just like that. Okay, it's going to be direct clutch. Did I say case? I meant casting. It's not the transmission case, it's the valve body. So this one is going to be inboard relative to the front of the casting. So your retainer clip's going to go right there. And this one may want to fight a little bit. That may want to spill out. And I may want to spill out again. And I think this other thing is all the way down. Falling out, spilling out. No, it's not all the way down. It's part way into the bore. And there it goes. So you want to get the groove just like that in the bore. And then seat your clip. Alright, last but not least, our manual valve. Alright, so valve body's fully assembled. Let's go ahead and take it over to the vac test machine and see how it does when we subject it to vacuum. All right, we're here at the back test station and I have the valve body all prepped for testing, and as you can see there is a Loctite Funtac on the bench. And the reason for that is you have to plug a whole lot of ports with this stuff so that you can get vacuum readings on the various clutch circuits or hydraulic circuits that we're going to be testing. I also have the manual valve and the 3 plastic retainer clips off because there may be occasions where I have to turn the valve body over, apply more Funtac in any place I may have missed so that we can test that given hydraulic circuit. So as you can see, this valve body is designed to be more or less a pass-through casting. So in other words, it's not like a traditional valve body where you have one side that's for the most part entirely covered up or solid, and then you have worm tracks on the other side. Here the worm tracks for the most part pass all the way through. So you need to put Funtac in all these different places so that you can actually test this thing. So if you want to take a second or two to make a screenshot of what you see here, these are all of the locations that you need to plug with Funtac. There's only, I think, 2, maybe 3 worm tracks or hydraulic circuits that we're going to test that don't require some putty there. Alright, so we're going to test all of the hydraulic circuits, i.e. all the valve trains in the locations specified by Sonics in their instructions, and we're also going to test the 9 captured check balls. So I have them labeled 1 through 9. Unfortunately the marker's starting to fade, but what we want to see is anywhere from 15 to 20 inches of vacuum on all of our working valves and or traditional hydraulic circuits, and we want to see 25 inches of vacuum, meaning a 100% total seal for all 9 of our captured check balls. If just one of those check balls is found to be leaking, basically the entire casting is no good, as far as I'm able to determine by looking around in the aftermarket and see what I can find as far as fixes or corrective products for those check balls. I've not been able to find any. So if you know of one, or if you know a way to fix it, go ahead and please put it in the comments, and it would be greatly appreciated, because it would kind of suck to have to replace a valve body because one of those 9 balls was leaking. So has to be sealed completely, 25 inches or nothing. Alright, like any vacuum test, the first thing you have to do with the machine is calibrate it before you can use it. Otherwise you're on the risk of generating invalid results. So for the Sonics machine, they have a calibration receptacle, and you're going to take your test lead and you're going to insert it into that receptacle. You have your gauge, obviously, and then you have 2 valves, a bleeder valve and a pump valve. The pump valve is going to have a hose that comes from the valve and goes into the air pump, and the air pump doesn't come with the machine, at least not from Sonics. I mean, you can go to any hardware store or online and pick one up. Okay, then you're going to have your test lead, and that is what is being inserted into the calibration receptacle. So you're going to use your pump valve and your bleeder valve to dial in your calibration. So you want a base 5 inches of calibrated vacuum when you turn this machine on with this test lead plugged into the calibration receptacle. And then when you turn the machine sideways, you're going to notice a calibration port right here. You're going to plug that port with a finger, and you're going to watch the needle jump up from 5 inches to somewhere between 20 and 30 inches. You want to dial this bleeder valve, adjusting it until you get a steady 25 inches of vacuum when your finger is on that calibration receptacle. So we'll go ahead and calibrate it now. So it looks like we have about 5.5 inches, maybe just shy of 5.5 inches. So we're going to adjust the pump valve clockwise to lower that vacuum down to 5 inches. Okay, once it's reading a steady 5 inches, go ahead and use a finger, plug the calibration receptacle. We are a hair over 25 inches of vacuum, so adjust the bleeder valve counterclockwise to lower the vacuum charge or signal until you get to 25. and then readjust as you need to your base calibrated vacuum once you remove your finger. So check it again, we're at 5. Now we're at 25. Back to 5. Once it does this, you know, do it a couple times maybe. Make sure. And you're good to go. So now the machine's ready for use. So here are the instructions that Sonix provides. I'll put a link in the description and also flash the image of this onto the screen so that you can see it and follow along. But there are, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 different locations, and among those, each has, or at least a couple of them have, 3 or 4 individual test points that we have to check. So we're going to start on the pressure regulator valve side. That's going to be this side here. Here's the PR valve. Here's going to be our TCC switch valve, and we're just going to work left to right, and then we'll flip it around, and then we'll check the valves on the other side, and then from there we'll go right into testing all of the captured check balls. So like I said, 15 to 20 is ideal for working valves, and then 25 or bust for the check balls. I'm going to record everything here on this sheet. So if I was doing this for a customer, one of these sheets would go into his file, and I would have that for reference in the event I ever needed to refer back to it. Stick that right there. Alright, so let's go ahead and begin. So the TCC switch valve only has one location. It's going to be this large rectangular cutout right there. Turn the machine on and let's see what we got. Alright, looks like 15.5 inches. That's what I'll record there. Alright, then you have your TCC control valve train. So that's going to be right here. So here's inboard. It's like 21.5. Outboard is going to be this kind of roughly rectangular cutout. See, it's 15. I mean, what you're seeing is bleed off because the putty is not holding. There we go. What is that, 17? Alright, now the control plunger and sleeve. .20.5. Alright, now we're going to move to the TCC regulator valve. That's going to be right here. A little over 20.5. So I'll record 20.5 as well. Alright, now we'll move to the PR valve. So it's going to be inboard. .19.5. Okay, third position in is going to be right there. There's 4 total test points. 19. Second position is this rectangular location. Okay, that looks like it's giving us just shy of 12. I'm going to record 11.5. It's obviously not an ideal result. And then now you got this roughly Y-shaped position. Or it looks kind of like New York State if it was to go on a massive diet. Alright, let's see if I can improve that reading. looks like that's also giving me 12. I tested it off camera as well. It was giving me 13. I'm going to record 12 though, just because that's what we're seeing on camera. Alright, so now we're going to go to the other side of the valve body. And you start the solenoid switch valve. So you got inboard, and then you have this intermediate section here, and then you have outboard. Alright, got up to like 17 until I had, you know, the putty was, like, there we go. I gotta reposition the putty on the other side. Looks like 18 actually. I'm gonna record 18. That's the inboard location. So here's the intermediate location. Mm, 17 and a half. And then our outbound location. There's our location. Now I forgot to add putty. I didn't actually test this one off camera. Put a chunk of it right here, because we're really testing just this area here. Alright, 15. So, had to put putty right there. I was messing with it for literally about 5 minutes. I cut most of that out, so that's why it suddenly disappeared. And then you have your direct clutch switch valve, inboard and outboard. So inboard's giving me 17, no, 18 and a half. Record 18 and a half. Again, you got to use downward force on this, and even then, oftentimes you're going to have to reset putty. So that's inboard. Let's see how outboard does. Looks like 16. We're going to do 16. Record 16. Alright. Now we have all of our captured check balls labeled accordingly. So let's see how they fare. Alright, arbitrarily numbered 1 through 9. Alright, number 1's good. My number 2. Number 2 is good. Alright, number 3 is good. I'm using a rubber tip that's literally exactly the size of the opening. So I really have to make sure I am 100% on that opening and covering it completely. Otherwise, you're not going to get an accurate reading. Okay, so far so good. Number 4 is sealing 100%. Now let's do number 5. Number 5's good. Number 6. Also good. Number 7. Number 8. Good to go. And number 9. All right. So batting 1,000 for the captured check balls. It's good news. Okay, let's take a look at the results. So for our working valves, for the most part, everything looks pretty solid. Couple low readings, got 12. Thought I had 11.5 and 12 for the PR. I mean, that's not all that surprising. Pressure regulator valves, especially when they're in valve bodies, tend to wear a little bit more than when they're in pumps or, you know, stator support pump covers. The rest of the hydraulic circuits are fine, and then all of our check balls, at least the captured ones, are good to go. So let's see. Pressure regulator valve. So it looks like there is an oversized PR valve available, but you do need to acquire the reamer. So if this was a customer job, I would retest this first and foremost, because as you can see with all this friggin' putty, it would not surprise me in the least to learn that, you know, one of those readings was low because there's a tiny little leak somewhere, you know, through the putty. So the first step will be to retest and validate that those readings are in fact accurate. You want to get consistency there. You know, load it up with more putty, then test it. I'm not going to do that now because, like I said, this is not a customer job, but that's what I would do in the event I had a low reading on one of these circuits. Assuming you did validate it, and yeah, that's, you know, a correct reading, and it's, you know, it's weak, then your next step is to either, you know, bore out that channel and put the oversized valve in there, or go get another valve body. I don't know if anyone makes gently oversized valves for these transmissions. Maybe Transgo does, maybe Central Valve Bodies does. I'll check into it and annotate the video if so, but assuming that nobody does, then you're going to want to either ream this valve body or install a Sonex, or excuse me, a reman valve body from somebody. Either Sonex or maybe Central Valve Bodies has one, or, you know, somebody else. I don't know. Like I said, this is my first 62 TE that I have ever touched, so I'm not completely well read up on them as of yet. Alright, so that's going to conclude the assembly and testing of the valve body itself. The next video will focus on the solenoid pack and putting together the entire assembly for the final time. So continue to that video, you know, once it appears on the channel. And otherwise, as always, guys, thank you so much for watching. Greatly appreciate it. If there's anything else that you would want either me or anyone else watching this to know, please put it in the comments, especially if you have a lot of time on these units. And it, you know, as always, that kind of information and contribution is greatly, greatly appreciated. Thank you again.